Alex McCalla.
Yeah.
What is going on?
A lot is going on. A lot is going on. I mean, we're talking about the last time we connected, we used to work at the same company. A lot has gone on since then. A global pandemic, and also my awakening to the world of somatics and its
Yeah.
healing potential. So yeah, it's been a whole journey. I'm excited to like dive into it with you.
I'm excited about it too, and you're absolutely right. We was talking off mic about like we worked together at Cap Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that was almost a decade ago.
Yep.
When you and I met, we were both like, like well, we're both still black, but we were
That
like
did change.
that right. That has not, thankfully, that has not
Yes.
changed. But we were one of the onlys trying to figure out, navigate things. I want to say actually, living corporate was like just an idea at that point. It hadn't even started yet. But we were talking because we were both in change management. We were both working with some of the same directors, trying to figure out, or senior managers, or whatever, trying to figure out, okay, who are these people? How do we navigate this? How do we navigate that?
Yep.
And then, I recall that I think I left Capgemini first, maybe, but like you then left shortly thereafter.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk to me about like your path, because we're going to get into somatic, right? We're going to get into the work you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I do want to, if I can, for our listeners, like really capture that journey, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
because when we met, like you were Alexandra McCalla, the corporate professional in Toronto, suited and booted, doing the different corporate events, leading panels,
Yes.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
While also kind of like building your own side hustle. You're at Capgemini. You're one of the rising stars at Capgemini. You then pivot. Like where did you go from Capgemini and why?
And why? Yeah. So I think I knew probably like a year into being at Cap, like that there was going to be a ceiling for me there. Like I knew, and I was like, you know what, let me get promoted. Let me, because, we were navigating similar things. Like certain directors maybe are not actually like trying to help people grow. Some are, different things. But I knew that that was kind of like the path for me. And I had previously worked in film and TV when I was in like university. My degree was in a double major in cinema studies and economics. So like I was loving the business side, but eventually I was like, I want to get back into something media related, was like my initial thought. So I actually, shortly after being promoted, I went up for a job at Netflix. And I must have told you about that at the time. I don't remember. Maybe not.
You went up for it.
I went up for it, and I was like, this is my dream job. It's going to make everything in my life better. And I had like 8 interviews, got to the final round, and I was really, like not in tune with myself those times. And I actually ended up having like a panic attack in the final part, which was this like Excel test. So I did all the like in-person case studies, all this stuff. They all loved me and were like, yeah, it was just this one thing, you didn't get the role. But I came out of that and I was like so grateful, because I was like, I'm like, I could be doing this at this stage, and actually I'm not as sad as I thought I was going to be after not getting it. And I thought to myself, like, okay, I think I'd put a ceiling on my potential, because I know I was capable of that role, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, so if I thought I was going to work at Netflix like 10 years from now, what did I think? Maybe another 10 years, and maybe I should do that now. And that was like, maybe work for myself. And so that was kind of the like, you know what, why not? Let's go for it. And I started a tech startup with some other people I knew at university, and went in, did that on the side of Capgemini for like a year. And that it was in deep tech around airspace technology for managing UAVs or like drones, lower level airspace stuff. And then eventually I left Capgemini, went and raised for that company, grew it, did some of the first things partnering with like the Canadian government, and did the whole like startup scene, a lot of like leadership stuff around that, women in tech and women founders. And the company was going really well. And then I had another like come to Jesus moment and in COVID, and I then decided to step away from the company. It was doing really well. It's still, it's doing well. I still own a bit of it, but and then I took some time off, moved back to the UK, and started this new journey that I now have been on. So I'll pause there, but that's kind of like the pivot within a pivot within a pivot. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. No, here's the thing, right? It's like what I enjoy about our conversations, even though they're like decades apart. what I appreciate about getting to know you and work with you at Capgemini is because, and as I think, even as you describe your journey, like I believe that you represent, and you're like the persona of a lot of high performing Black and brown talent, right? When you think about the workforce of the future, like you're the type of talent that organizations really want, and they're really trying to retain and keep. Because I recall when you were at Cap, and you were like doing your thing on the side. We talked about it. We talked about like, hey, I got this thing, and I was like, you should go. Like, you need to go take care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I remember, I'm not gonna say her name, but I remember your direct coach or manager was like asking me about you. Was like, what do you think? I was like, she's about to go, and she should. I said it. I was like, she's about to leave.
Yep. Yeah.
And I was and she's like, what do you think we can do to keep? I said, I don't think you can do nothing to keep. I mean, what do you mean? She's a high performing talent. Like there's nothing, like the infrastructure here doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
For what she was, and I remember, and then like just like a year after that, or like shortly after that, I ended up leaving to do something else, right? Because, and I think when you think about the workforce of the future, it's going to be people like yourself, like they're innovative, they're entrepreneurial, they're able, they can work like cross stream, they can do a multiplicity of things, right? And so then you pivoted, and so then you do the whole tech startup thing.
Yep.
And like that in itself is its own like hustle, right? And I want to say, like, at that time, pre-COVID, the VC space was mad different than it is now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, good for you for finding that next thing to do, right? And like, I think for a lot of people, COVID, that pandemic season was like a reawakening and reset for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So talk to me about like what fostered or what was the catalyst for your like pivot, your second pivot out of the business that you helped found?
Yes. Yeah. Which is like a really hard thing to step away from, like when and this is what I find a lot of founders, their identity is so wrapped up in, and this is same in corporate as well. We can really get our identity wrapped up in a title, in a logo, in a whatever. And that can be a beautiful thing, but it can also be a handicap, So that second pivot was, on my entrepreneurial journey, I was realizing, because it's not you kind of only facing yourself every day. So even though I had it was like a few of us co-founding, and then we like scaled the team a little bit while I was there. It's like you're really faced with the mirror of yourself. And I started to see, like, I feel like I've got these kind of like blocks or like patterns, or like I'm not, because you need to push the edge with, with the type of customers you're trying to land, the sales, whatever. It's like anything that is resistance in you starts to show up. And I essentially was like, I know that I'm saying and doing things I don't want to do. I can't really put my finger on it, but I felt like some sort of like limiting factor in my entrepreneurial journey, which the entrepreneurial journey will show you, And so then I started working with a coach who was framed around like, how can we expand you from a work and general perspective? But that's always like the in, and then they're like, hi, you have all this unresolved shit that they're just like coming in. And part of working with her was having a complimentary breathwork session with a woman that then became like a mentor and peer of mine like many years later. And that session, which then became one of many, it just opened me up to like what was going on inside my body. I was really disconnected from it, but I had all these different warning signs. Like my immune system was really poor. Like I thought it was just normal to just like generally have a cold and flu all the time, or like kind of be healing from one thing. I had like stomach issues. I had relational issues. And I could like I had like starting to get some like pain issue in the body, like from a more nervous system perspective. And as I started like doing more of this work going into my body, working with my nervous system, just more and more started shifting. And I came more into contact with like the true me underneath the various like conditioned layers that I had taken on. And, you know, I think about this, why we were in change management or in like innovation. And even when I was running the startup, for me, I loved the tech, but really what drove me was the people. Like I was always there for the people side of it, you know? And once I started to shift my relationship with my own empathy and my own sensitivity and start to like heal some of that, it was like, oh no, this is like a superpower. And actually, this is what I need to work with. And you bring that with a little business knowledge, and then like, you know, I'm on my way, like I can build my practice. So yeah, that was it. And I mean, not to go into too much detail, but I had a breakdown of sorts, like physically, and emotionally and relationally at the end of 2020, which was like very severe. And luckily I'd already started this work up to that point. So it was like, I took the time off and then was like, quite a few of my like practitioners or things like, you know, you'd be really good at this work. Like, I think you should train in it. So I started training in breathwork and somatics, and yeah, the rest is history where I am right now. So that's the second pivot.
That's incredible. No, I mean, that's incredible. Like it. So it's interesting too, because I talk to a lot of Black and brown folks, or a lot of people on the margins who are in corporate America, and a lot of them go through some period of needing to like take a leave, or you know, there's some sort of like almost like experience where we have to like kind of shed away these things that we really held dear. I mean, to your point about breakdown, I recall it was it 2020? It might have been 2020. It might have been like right before COVID, that I took a mental health leave, right? I needed to take care of myself. Like I was like, hey, I'm breaking down. Like I am not seeing things effectively and clearly. And I think it's tough when you're a high performer. Yeah. You have a lot of internalized pressure. You're trying to, you know, there's a lot of accountability and responsibility on you. You have to take care of the things around you. Yeah. And like to your point about identity, you put a lot of your identity in your success, or maybe even more problematic, in how successful other people deem you to be. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a problem. Yeah. Because and people are fickle. So as soon as they feel like, oh, well, you're not actually, then all of a sudden your house of cards comes falling down. Yes. So good for you though. And like that work. And while I can't say that like my therapy was necessary. It was not fully focused on breath work. The therapy that I went to, like we did do a lot of breath work, and I recall the impact of it. And there's still practices. Just on my day to day, like if things are going too crazy. Because now, I got 2 kids, yo. Like that's how long we have not spoken. I have 2 whole kids with twins on the way.
Oh
I
my
got a whole family.
gosh.
I know, right? So my house is crazy. So every now and then I got to just like slow down
Mm-hmm.
and like be very intentional with the breath. And
Yes.
just like make sure I'm breathing on purpose.
Yes.
So let's continue because I very much so want to understand. I appreciate the context into the pivot. Now let's talk a little bit about like somatic work. Like, what is that, and like what from your experience has been the benefit of it?
Yeah. So breath work falls under somatic work. So when I'm talking about somatics, just picture it that way. That somatic is essentially working with what we call your soma, which is your body, but it's more like your whole being, including your body. So I like to say, our body is not just a brain taxi. We have a nervous system that's wired for survival, and it is governing a lot all the time. It's governing, of course, our heart rate, our hormone functioning, our digestion, the tension in our muscles, but it's also governing what signals it's sending to the brain in terms of, are we in a survival situation? Are we in a more fight flight environment, or are we safe? Are we thriving? And when we are very intellectual, it can seem like, because we've got a million different thoughts, that we're just, we're thinking about things clearly. But actually, if your body is not in that place, then you don't actually genuinely have access to your prefrontal cortex, your collaboration centers, your creation, like all those innovation flow. You don't actually genuinely have access to that place. And when we work somatically with someone therapeutically, we're working first and foremost with where is their body at? And the body and the nervous system, it tends to speak the language of sensations over English. Now, there can also be a dialogue with this mind-body connection, because it's not one-way traffic. It's a loop. It's a connection. But when we enter through the body somatically, we're focused on how, from a sensory perspective, what's going on first. So, okay, I feel like this person's judging me, for example. It's like, okay, what does that feel like in your body? Do you get a tight chest? Do you feel like a little bit wobbly? Do you feel a numbness in your stomach? Do you feel tension in your head? And it can get even more nuanced, but essentially you start to tune into your embodied experience, learn the language of your body, and that way you can start to process experiences, past experiences, emotions, survival stress, activation in a holistic way, aka mind and body. And, the involuntary nervous system, which is just governing all of our involuntary processes, 80% of those nerves are actually sending information from the body to the brain. And only 20% are receiving information from the brain down to the body. So it's understanding that the majority of our experience is actually happening, below the neck. And if we don't tap into that, we're kind of just going in a mental echo chamber of only trying to solve things through the mind rather than our experience. And the breath falls under that, because the breath is the only major bodily function in the involuntary nervous system that crosses unconscious and conscious. So I can't stop my digestion, but I can look at my breath. Oh, how is it? What is that showing me? Like, do I want to take more breath? Am I breathing shallow? And start to build a relationship with that. So that's like super high level. As you can imagine, it gets really deep and beautiful, but that's what we're talking about when we're talking about somatics. It's like healing yourself at the nervous system level rather than just trying to think your way out of a feeling, and a feeling's happening in the body.
You know what I love about when I think about like treatment and therapy and wellness overall is that, there's no one piece that is the right way. And like over indexing on one thing while neglecting or ignoring other things is problematic. So like the idea, to your point, of like trying to think your way out of something, is like, that's problematic. Thinking about it and having an awareness of it, like, that's thinking is not bad, but thinking like that's the only way. Or over medicating. And like, let me just like take up as many pills as possible. We there's tons of documentaries and books and folks way more educated than myself, like who are skilled to talk about those pieces, how problematic that is. So I love this idea of what you're articulating, in that it's like there's this consciousness and thinking around the body, and starting at like the most foundational pieces. That's really cool. So for you, because you alluded to it earlier, you talked about, you were sick often, or you kind of just had different ailments and pains and things. What was your journey and experience with the breath, with somatic work, and like what? Because I think and really the bigger question, the more direct question is, what is it about this work that was so impactful to you that you decided to pivot into it as a career?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we start top line, I literally, over the past 4 years, I've been sick once every 2 years, like with a flu. One was coming off a plane and going to a wedding the next day, like that kind of thing. And the other, so my immune system is like crazy good. My chronic pain stuff is gone. My IBS, my stomach stuff is gone, and I didn't change my diet. And that's just talking about the physical things, let alone how I feel inside my body, what relationships, what choices I'm making, all that kind of stuff. And the fundamental thing is that when we are in a chronic state of survival in our nervous system, the body cannot, and therefore the mind as well, cannot recover and repair in the way it knows how to. The body knows how to heal itself, right? But if we're in a state of survival, and that is both a mental state and a physical state, so understanding like, I can go get a massage, I can go sit in the sauna, but if I have unprocessed trauma or a pattern of being in survival, and that's showing up in my thinking, that's showing up in how I'm bracing, these little things are not going to actually heal yourself at the nervous system level, which has a cascade down to all these other things, right? Taking risks, like being able to be vulnerable, feel safe in different types of situations, for example. So that's essentially what it was. It was like, okay, I need to process the things in my body that never got the space or the safety to be able to process. So we may have thought about like a loss, for example, processed it mentally, but like, have we actually allowed our body to process the grief, which comes with all the tension, all the different things, I always say, like, have you ever tried to like keep in a cough? It's like so much tension in the body, like when your body wants to cough and you're keeping it down. That's what we can do on a chronic level over time when it comes to emotions, maybe even like responses, like say maybe you had a shock trauma and you have like some sort of like jump response in the body, for example, or stress. And so that's over time when you work through those things, and then you develop your nervous system capacity to feel more, you essentially can stay in a present moment non-survival state more often, and that just opens up everything in terms of your actions, your thinking, and then how your body functions underneath. Does that make sense?
You know what? It makes plenty of sense to me. And I think about this idea, to your point, of like being in this non-survival state, and just when you think about the Black and brown experiences that work for those in the marginalized, queer, women, disabled, visibly or invisibly disabled, like, so much of what those in the margins are taught, is how resilience and adaptability are critical and good things. And like the constant little things you're kind of absorbing or semi-dodging or noticing but not trying to internalize, they still end up kind of getting through, right? I think about it like our skin. Like, I don't always appreciate that, like, your skin is your biggest organ. And so, like, you get something on your skin, and let's say you try to wipe it off or, like, rub, but just some of that's still going to get in your body. Like, your skin can ingest things. And I think, like, that's often, like, for me anyway, I often underestimate just that fact that, like, hey man, your skin is like this thing that can like absorb. And like we are as human beings, like we have that natural, not just capacity, but that's just what we naturally do. It's innate. We have that. Yes, we have that innate ability to absorb. And so when I think about people on the margins, and I think about what you're describing, it's like, man, I feel like anybody who is not cis, white, straight, male, Christian, able-bodied, blonde hair, blue eyes is probably going to need some degree of breath work, somatic work.
Yeah. Because think about it, and I can definitely feel this in my body when I think about going into the workplaces before that we were, is that like our system is constantly picking up like these different sensations, and that's to the point where it's like, imagine you go in a room and someone's just shouted at someone or something, you could already be like, oh, what's just happening here, even if you didn't like wasn't there when whatever was happening. We're constantly co-regulating with each other, because when you think about that nervous system assessing survival, safety versus threat, that's also to do with other people. So like, how safe or threat are you? How alert do I need to be around you? And when we go alert, we're going into like literally blinkers on, more adrenaline, cortisol, more like hypervigilance, which, you know, Black and brown people know about baseline a lot. And if you're in a workplace with a dysregulated boss on top of that, who basically, when we say dysregulated, it's like emotionally reactive, volatile, like projecting, maybe really disconnected and not empathic, not able to like be with themselves, then your body is going to be in a state of like, when I'm around this person, we're kind of in like a threat situation. So it's not just work stress. Like you may have like a bit of cortisol, a bit more adrenaline times when there's like an extra deadline. It's like, how is your body actually doing with being in that environment, let alone what it is you're like, the work that you're doing? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think like, I do think that there needs to be like this internalization of, or rather this like appreciation that most people are in constant survival. Just hit my own. There we go. All right. Okay. Here we go. All right.
It's getting real.
It's getting real. All right. Most people are in some sort of survival mode.
Response. Yeah.
Right. There's like they're constantly trying to, again, especially those on the margins, figure out how to continue to
navigate.
Navigate. And then like you think about the higher up you go. You know, it's so interesting. Like, you know, there's people I meet, I've talked to on Living Corporate, outside of Living Corporate, who might be like 20, 30 years in the game. And they've like suppressed and like so much of what we're talking about is so much their norm.
Yes.
That to do something like this would be like tearing away like so much of who they think they are.
Yeah. And I work with, like, I had client today even where it's like working with their relationship with work itself, and we've been working together for a while, but she's like, oh my God, I'm just in such a different place with work, coming from a place of safety with self-love first and safety with my needs first, which has to feel okay in the body. And then work can come from that place. Like action can come from that place rather than action needing to be about force, push, survive, like get through, because that's just what it is. But when it's your lived embodied reality, it's and this is why I say to people, it's like living in my body before was a different place. It's like, it's a completely different reality is possible. And that can then navigate the choices that you make for the types of workplaces that you are in, like the types of role that you take, how you give yourself and not to that role, what, and also then the quality of the work that you do. Because it's not like, I've been in the startup world, in the corporate world, and I don't think just like getting like, oh, just get away is the solution. It's like, how can you shift within yourself so that the choices and the places that you navigate in, they come from a different lens? Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. And I think like, because, and getting away, okay, yeah, that removes you from like maybe a toxic situation or environment.
That's needed.
So like, so sure. However, like you're still going to be wherever you go.
Yes.
So, and you may have some desires to build something or create something or work with people. And like, so you still need to figure out how you're going to navigate and live. And I do think that like so often, like I like you did not say this as we're having this conversation. I'm picking up this, like, I believe that like breath work is like, it's a great exercise in personal accountability because it's about what you can control.
Yeah.
Your breath.
Yes.
Right. It's about you being thoughtful about how you're feeling and where your body is. Like that to me is so dope. And I think, again, multiple things can be true. I remember when I was in therapy, when I was at a consulting firm, and my therapist was like, listen, we're going to go ahead and approve this leave for your mental health. However, leverage the mental health, your leave, to find somewhere else to be. You can't do the leave and go back. You cannot go back to this environment. And I would recommend let's continue with this therapy so that we can identify some new tools and practices as you navigate your next, right? And so I believe that, when I think about this work and I think about especially the current state of work, what is it that you believe that like executive leaders need to understand to like in this broader space? Because you're like kind of going back to the top of the conversation, you started in change management, like in org transformation, innovation work. Like, what is it that you believe is like a missing element in terms of like employee experience right now?
Yeah. And this really gets at what I believe is missing, which is understanding true self-leadership. To be a leader, to understand true self-leadership. And part of that is how somatically intelligent you are. We're taught in schools how to be cerebrally intelligent. We exist up here, but it is such like it's just so, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like, it's so misguided to approach yourself and others, especially if you have a team, as if that is the full picture of what you need to navigate your experience in a organic, physical human body vessel on this world. So it's about understanding and developing your somatic intelligence. So what is somatic intelligence? It's knowing that you don't just step into a meeting and all your past experiences, emotions, how tense you're feeling in your body, that just doesn't exist. It's just, oh, I have a purely plain, rational, logical mind in that situation. Don't be ridiculous. No, you don't. How are you in tune with your bodily needs? Have you been meeting them at a baseline? Do you understand that that's going to make you a safe person to lead something, to make decisions, to see possibilities, to innovate, to collaborate, all these things? So I think there's just a shift, and this is like beyond the workplace. This is like a whole Western thing. We're the sickest we've ever been, but the most like high quality of living. Why is that? Because we're still approaching everything as if we can we can just grit teeth think our way through it. No, you're in a physical vessel. There's a system going on. You need to learn how to drive the car that is your body. And in that car is your nervous system, where there's like a gas pedal, there is a brake pedal. And if you don't understand that, you're kind of ignorantly blasting through as if you can just think your way through things. So essentially, leaders in these organizations, we can develop their own somatic intelligence, because then they'll understand truly through a felt embodied experience of what this means. And then from that place, it becomes very simple to understand that, people are burned out, they just need a wellness break. Yes and or no, because like I said, if you're in survival and getting a massage, it's helping a little bit, but not really. So from that perspective, I would love, and I was just talking to someone about this, if like somatic practitioners, somatic therapists were covered under insurance. They're not. I have people who want to work with me, but like they're not, or it's brought in. Some organizations have breathwork practitioners come and do a session every month or so, leading edge ones. So, but I think it really starts at home. Like, develop the self-leadership to understand that no matter how much your ego may think you have a perfect functioning brain with no impact from your embodied experience, if you self-lead yourself in that, you'll see ripples with others around you, and then it will become very easeful and clear to know where you need to invest in bringing that into your workplace.
I love that. Alex, we could talk all day. I'm really glad that we got reconnected here.
Yes.
For the people that want to learn, and by the way, everyone listening to this needs to check out Alex McCalla, check out her work. We're going to put the links in the show notes, but where can they find you? Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, so website, alexandramccalla.com. Instagram's where I'm like most active, Alexandra McCalla, at Alexandra McCalla. Also on LinkedIn, I'm doing more there. If you look my name up, it should be fine. I do have a Sematic Intelligence program coming up, 6 months, where we go deep into all of this. The first month is around the nervous system, second month around like body and emotions. Then we have the self, relationships, work and leadership, and your life. Like, it's gonna get somatically intelligent on all of it in an embodied way. But also, I work one-on-one with people from all over the world. And I work with a lot of people who, because I've got this background in like raising money and running all the things, people who are coming from that like executive or business lens, that sometimes they find certain therapists maybe don't got like the chops in that. So, because it's part of, the overall thing. So yeah, that you can find all that details on my website, and I'm open, email, DM me. I'm here.
I love it. It's been Alex McCalla, founder, innovator, entrepreneur, consultant, speaker, overall dope, enterprising person. You know what I'm saying?
Try to do the work,
You're doing more than trying. We're going to talk to you soon, Alex.
Thank you so much.
Peace.
Bye.